welcome to my channel. I'm so glad that you're here. If you're not familiar with my story, my name is Kimberly. I've been sharing my journey on Instagram since 2016, and I'm fairly open about my struggles with obesity and weight loss. I wanted to make this video today to talk about my history with weight and obesity, to talk about how I've lost weight, and some of the issues that I've faced along the way. Weight loss for me has been anything but a linear journey. It's definitely gone up and down. But what I've found is that in those points that it's the hardest and maybe I'm gaining weight back or I'm struggling, that's where I grow. That's where everything changes. And if it was just this linear line, this linear path to success, then it wouldn't be a journey. There wouldn't be anything to learn and there definitely wouldn't be any growth. It's easy to focus on weight loss and think about shrinking yourself, but I think the most important part to actually changing your relationship with food and the way you see your body is in growing, not just shrinking. To give you a little bit of background on me, I've struggled with obesity since childhood. I remember being 8 years old and meeting my biological dad for the first time, and he looked me up and down and said, "You'll be okay as long as you don't gain any more weight because you'll get taller." And it was the first time anybody had ever even mentioned my weight to me. As I got a little bit older, I started noticing that, my friends were a lot smaller than me. I was always the bigger girl, the chubby girl. And I learned to really hate my body and feel that my body was holding me back from everything I wanted. From probably 5th grade on, I was about a size 13 in juniors. And I remember sophomore year of high school being really scared to get any bigger because if I did, I didn't know what I was going to do because there were no sizes after that. And senior year, I started working for In-N-Out Burger. It was my very first job. They gave us a free meal every shift we worked. So I had a double, french fries, milkshake, the whole works. And in the course of 1 year, I gained 60 pounds. I found out what happens after you grow out of a size 13. You had to start shopping at the women's stores. I was shopping at Lane Bryant, Mervyn's, JCPenney's, all those places that I was really embarrassed to shop at because none of my friends shopped there. I would go shopping with my girlfriends and have to buy accessories instead of clothes, and then have to have my mom take me to the women's stores later so that I could find something that resembled what my friends were wearing. I remember being so thankful when Torrid opened. It wasn't really my style. I was more of preppy style, but I still found really cute things, and it was so nice to have things that were younger and in my size. It made me feel so confident. Right out of high school, I started working for a bank, and I worked with a lot of older women who were just amazing. A group of them were going on the Atkins diet, and I noticed they were bringing burgers to work and avocado and having all these things that just looked delicious. And I remember seeing our loan officer dipping her burger patty with cheese and some mayonnaise. And I asked her, "Are you losing weight eating that?" She was like, "Yes." So the next day she brought the Dr. Atkins book to work and gifted it to me. And that was the very first actual diet that I ever went on. Before that, I'd always try to be I'm not going to eat. I'm just going to skip meals. I could never do it longer than I would skip breakfast, lunch, and then by dinner, just binge eat. And I think that's where my lifelong struggle with binge eating came from. And as an adult and as I've gotten older, I've noticed that anytime I even think about restricting, the next thing I think about afterward is binging. So it was the first diet that I went on. I lost just a crazy amount of weight. I think at the time I was in a size 20 because I had started buying jeans at Old Navy. They went up to a 20. I got down to a 14 and bought my first pair of jeans from American Eagle. I felt so good, so cute. It was just amazing. Then slowly by slowly, that kind of slipped away. I started gaining more weight back, and I would keep trying to go back to Atkins. But what actually ended up happening was I would do really, really good for maybe 3 or 4 days and then just completely go off the rails. So instead of losing weight, I was rapidly gaining it because for a few days I would eat burger patties and mayonnaise and avocado, and then the next few days I would eat candy and pizza and ice cream. So it just really wasn't healthy. And I didn't know enough about nutrition to even recognize that I was probably better off just not dieting at all if I couldn't stick with it, or doing something even less than what I was doing that was just way too restrictive for me and was causing me to take 2 steps forward and 10 steps back. I moved out of my mom's house. I had some roommates. We were all like on Atkins together again, doing some low carb stuff. I was a broke college student, so I didn't have money to go out and eat anything I wanted to. So I ended up losing weight pretty quickly again. And then when I turned 21, I had my first child. I gained a lot of weight when I was pregnant with her. And then afterwards, it was just the same dance again, trying Atkins. Then I stumbled across the cabbage soup diet, and I tried that for a really long time, like 6 months. And finally, I just got so sick of it. I think like the day that I gave it up. So if you're not familiar with that diet, you have certain days where like you can eat different foods. And one day it's like nothing but bananas and skim milk. And then another day it's like nothing but like I want to say like chicken or protein, meat, maybe a steak. I can't remember. But on my protein day, I just wanted something sweet so bad, and I ended up having a banana, even though like the day before was all bananas and I was sick of them and all I wanted was a steak. So I gave that up. I briefly tried the Mayo Clinic type diet. I think that's what it's called. Basically, I had these little 1 ounce cups that I would put food in. And I didn't use the food you were supposed to. I just tried to use like Atkins type food because I thought, okay, if I can do Atkins and do these super small portions, I'll lose weight fast. And that was like a huge theme in my relationship with weight loss. I always thought it had to be fast. There was no waiting, there was no doing it like a sustainable way. It had to be quick. And then once it was quick, then I could lighten up a little bit, but I just had to make up for lost time. I ended up losing, like, between doing Atkins and doing, cabbage soup diet, I ended up losing enough weight to get back down to a size 14 again, which felt really sustainable and comfortable for me. I felt cute because the biggest thing for me was being able to wear the same clothes as every other 20 something year old. My husband and I got married in 2009, and before our wedding, I went to try on dresses, and the biggest size they had was a 16, but I had really settled into my relationship with him and gained a lot of weight. I was back into a size 22, which was at that time the biggest I had ever been. I tried on this dress, I fell in love with it. They told me, we can resize it a little bit, but you're going to have to lose weight. So I shelled out the $1,800 for it, which was way more than I had to spend on a wedding dress. Went home and thought, okay, how am I going to lose this weight? So there was a local weight loss clinic in town. You paid like $1,000 and they gave you these HCG shots. And they gave you these hormone shots that you had to take also with a B12 shot and basically be on a 500 calorie a day diet. But they also gave me a bunch of appetite suppressants, so I wasn't really hungry and I was really just spending my 500 calories on like candy, ice cream, and just having like maybe like a milkshake for the whole day to eat. And I lost weight so rapidly. By the time my wedding came, I was in a size 10, which was the smallest I had been since middle school. And I felt like so happy. I looked so beautiful in the big, beautiful dress. And literally the next day, I started gaining weight. Got back up in size. I think I got back into like a 20, 22. My husband went on Atkins and he started losing a lot of weight. I was making his meals for him, but I was eating completely different because I just could not do it. I started looking into this new diet I had found called the keto diet. And I thought, well, that's very similar to Atkins. But I kind of understood, like, okay, the reason this is better is because I was never focusing on eating healthy fats. I need fat for fuel. I need to keep my carbs even lower. And I thought, okay, I've like discovered the reason why I wasn't successful with Atkins. So maybe I can make those adjustments and be successful. And I was. Well, first, let me back up. First, I was successful. I lost about 20 pounds and then I got pregnant. After 8 years of trying for baby number 2 and really giving up and thinking that it just wasn't in the cards for us, I got pregnant with twins. Peyton and Piper were born in 2014, the end of the year, and it was like just the most magical time in the whole world. But I was up to 300 pounds and life was really hard for me. It was hard for me to like be a mom of 2 very active toddlers and a preteen, and I wanted to lose the weight so badly. There was this moment in 2016 where my girls were playing on the trampoline and they kept calling, "Mommy jump, mommy jump." I couldn't even climb up the ladder. It hurt my feet. It was just too much for me. And I definitely couldn't imagine jumping on the trampoline. And it was this aha moment for me where it wasn't about fitting into a pair of jeans. It wasn't about the big, beautiful wedding dress. It was about the quality of my life and the times I was missing out on with my children. My oldest was already 9, 10 at that point, and I knew how fast it went and I didn't want to miss out again. So I got back to keto. I started documenting my journey on Instagram, made a lot of friends through it, and ended up losing 150 pounds over the course of 2 years. At that point, I really thought I had healed my relationship with food. I felt really positive about my body. I felt positive about my former body. I was losing a lot of that like self-loathing, and I was not being restrictive, but at the same time was still following the rules of keto. And if I did gain a little bit of weight, I wasn't hard on myself, was really gentle. It was a much different journey for me. Then in 2020, when the pandemic hit, I gained a little bit of weight. It felt really good for me. I was eating a little bit more carbs, but they were mostly coming from veggies. I wasn't exercising as much because I couldn't go without my kids and I didn't have anybody to watch them. Really embraced the extra weight. I was about 180 pounds at that point, almost 30 pounds up from my lowest weight. And I felt so happy. It was that point where I was like, I am happy and healthy. Early 2021, my little girl was diagnosed with cancer.
My sunshine, you make me happy when skies are gray.
It was the light of my whole life, and it was a very, very hard time for all of us. Her and I basically lived in the hospital for almost 3 years. Over those 3 years, the rules of keto just weren't sustainable for me anymore. And honestly, I didn't care anything about myself. I wasn't living for me. I was only living for her every single day. I wasn't brushing my hair. People ask me all the time if I got my eyesight fixed because I don't wear glasses as much, but no, I just didn't renew my contact prescription. I wasn't going to the doctor. I wasn't spending any time on myself at all because I just didn't care. It was everything I had, and every bit of anything I had was going to her. In 2023, when frontline treatment slowed down and she was cancer free, I decided it was time to get back to making those positive changes. And again, it wasn't about fitting into the jeans or the goal shorts or being a certain size. It was about being there for my kids. It was about spending that quality time that cancer had taken away from us and not having any regrets. I tried keto. I tried so hard with it. And I just kept gaining weight because, again, it would be a few days of keto, eating high fat, low carb, high protein, and then just a bender of cake and ice cream and everything I could manage to stuff in my body because there was always that overwhelming thought of, I've got to be good tomorrow, I've got to go back tomorrow. But it was too much, and so tomorrow never came, and it was just this constant, never-ending binge. We were in New York for treatment for Piper, and we were eating at one of my favorite restaurants that has like pretty healthy food, but it's so good. And I really wanted the sweet potatoes, but those were too high in carbs, so I didn't get them. And I kept telling myself, like, I've got to be good, I've got to be good. I had been doing so well for a couple weeks and had even lost a few pounds, and I just didn't want to lose that momentum. We got back home, I got on DoorDash, and I literally DoorDashed my way through Manhattan. I got ice cream and milk bar and Chinese food, like just everything you could think of. I just binged like crazy. And then the next morning, like I woke up and just felt so devastated. I had this another aha moment where I realized, like, what if I had just gotten the sweet potatoes? I mean, yeah, it was higher in carbs, but it surely beat the ice cream and the cake and the orange chicken and everything else I had at midnight. I decided at that point I wasn't going to diet anymore. It wasn't working for me. And I deserved to feel good. I deserved to be healthy. And I really, and it feels like strange to say, and people that have not had the same relationship with food as I have may not understand this, but for the first time in my life, I thought about food as being nutrition for my body instead of just something like I used for comfort and joy and a boredom buster or a way to restrict and lose weight. And I started thinking, like, what are the most nutritious choices I can make? Felt amazing. I started eating all these meals that I had never eaten before because I was always in this like state of like, I can't have something like just healthy, like multigrain pancakes, because I have to be good tomorrow. So I'm going to get the cheesecake French toast instead. There was never this middle ground for me. And the middle ground felt great. And I had no intention of weight loss. But within the month, my jeans were feeling looser. And I couldn't believe it. I stepped on the scale and I had lost almost 20 pounds in that month. I continued. I kept telling myself, I'm not doing this for weight loss. I'm not restricting. Nothing's off limits. And the weight just kept falling off. By the end of that year, I was down 80 pounds and just could not believe it. Now, the one thing I was doing was I was trying to avoid processed food. So if I wanted things like an apple pie from McDonald's, I would make one. I made like a hand pie at home. And it felt good knowing that I was using like these simple ingredients, very simple foods, and it really changed the way that I saw food. The more I thought about it, I kind of looked back on why diets hadn't worked for me in the past, and a lot of that came down to too many rules and too many restrictions. I kind of had this moment where I realized I needed to do something that allowed me to have the flexibility and freedom of having processed foods, having some different things as options, not having to be so rigid with what I was eating, because although this felt good now because it was new and it was so different from how I had been eating my whole life with low carb choices, I knew that newness would wear off. And what was I going to do? I joined Weight Watchers. I had used them in the past, like for maybe a couple months with my mother-in-law. She convinced me to go to a couple meetings. And when I thought about like the healthiest I had ever understood food, I was at those meetings. Talked about like whole foods and real foods, but being balanced and having the bread, but filling it up with veggies. And so I started following the program and it really helped. It gave me like these points and flexibility where I could have those things that maybe weren't as like nutritionally dense, but I still felt balanced, like I wasn't overdoing it. I lost another 40 pounds with Weight Watchers by the summer of 2024, and I felt like I have done it. I have healed my relationship with food. I have made it like this is it. I stopped tracking and I kind of like just relied on 0 point foods and felt like, okay, like I've taught myself how to do this. I can just eyeball it, it'll be fine. So that was summer of last year. I noticed by like the holidays, we went like after Thanksgiving, we went to Hawaii for a family vacation. We had Christmas. I had like this wonderful thing where I was up on a billboard in Times Square. So it was just like a few months of just really like a lot of celebration and joy and no tracking, no real mindfulness about what I was eating. Been going to my doctor dealing with like a situation with my vocal cords, and every time I went in, they would weigh me, and I kind of noticed like my weight's going up a little bit. I finally like broke down last month and put batteries in my scale and weighed myself, and I'm up about 28 pounds. I kept saying, I think I've gained like 20 pounds. So I was shocked to know it was closer to 30, but that's okay. I still feel really good. I'm really proud of myself. And all I can do is be curious about it and figure out what's going on and why I'm gaining that weight and what changes I can make. I've talked with my primary care doctor about my weight, and I've let her know like I don't want to be 150 pounds. I feel best around 180 pounds, and she agreed with me that that would be a great healthy weight for me to aim for. So right now, I'm looking to lose about 50 pounds. In January, I started with two things. The first thing I did was join a step bet where I was walking almost 10,000 steps every day, and that really helped me to build some consistency when I felt like I couldn't do it with food. Because even that thought of restricting or not being able to have something really started sending me spiraling again, where I was just like wanting an ice cream every day, wanting a milkshake like after every meal. And I didn't want to go back to that place. So I backed off of eating. I started tracking my Weight Watchers points, my calories, and my protein, and just being more aware of what I was eating while I was walking. So January, I didn't lose any weight. February, I kind of went back and realized that one of the changes that I made was incorporating a lot of like more carbs into my diet. And I was diagnosed with PCOS, with insulin resistance. And what that means is that my body, when I eat things like refined carbs, it produces a little too much insulin, puts my body into a fat storage mode. So I tried to just pull back a little bit on some of those carbs like rice and white bread, but it was really hard for me to do. So I did something like completely opposite, and I went back to like zero carbs for an entire week. It was so hard. Like, I cannot believe I did keto for so long because it was the hardest week of my life. After that, I reincorporated like sweet potatoes, chickpeas, lentils, but just smaller portions of them. I noticed immediately that the bloat was just gone and my appetite feels better. I feel like a lot more like satiated between meals, and I'm really focusing on protein right now. Since I made those changes, I'm down 10 pounds now, and I feel really good. I feel like I'm back in the groove of things. I know that that was kind of like a lot of weight loss all at once, but I think that was just from making some of those adjustments. And right now I am just focusing on slow and steady weight loss and getting to that goal. That's my story with weight and weight loss in a nutshell. Let me know if you want me to go into any more depth on any of those, or if there's any videos you'd like to see. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much for visiting my channel and for hanging out with me, and I can't wait to see you again.